Happy New Year, everybody! It is Monday, January the 2nd, 2023. I was thinking 2022, and then as I was saying the date, I said 23. It's Jordan now. 2023. Hope everybody had a great and happy and healthy New Year. Well, it is now 2023. I got some jacked up looking skin above my eyes. It looks like I got a second eyelash or eyebrow. I don't know what's going on with me, but I'll figure it out, and so will you. Happy New Year to the Browns, who won their first game of the 2023 calendar year, taking care of the Washington Commanders with an impressive second half, the best half of football for DeShaun Watson in this offense. They scored 21 of their 24 points in the second half, beat the Commanders 24-10, and now we'll play the Steelers next week. And the winner will finish in third place in the AFC North. Lots of Browns talk, plus the Buckeyes choke away a game they should have won against Georgia. They had it, and they let it slip away. We'll talk about that and a whole lot more on the first edition of 2023 of The Bullpen with Adam the Bull. And it is, of course, brought to you by, to start the year, Bet Online. Bet Online has you covered the season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. Bet Online, where the game starts. And we'll start this podcast coming up next.
Podcast is not for the faint of heart.
And I do think it's time for the Browns to move on.
It's not for those who ride the fence.
He's proven nothing.
But if you're looking for someone who tells it like it is about Cleveland sports,
everybody does fandom their way.
You've come to the right place.
I don't think he's any good.
It's time for the Bullpen with Adam the Bull.
Bow, 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 bow. Oh, you caught me scratching my nose. What are you going to do? All right, Browns get the victory, improved to 7-9 on the season. Not the record you hope for, but hopefully they'll win their last game and get some momentum going into the offseason. DeShaun Watson only threw 18 passes, but in the second half, he played great. It was his best half of football. He threw for 140-something yards in the second half, all 3 touchdowns, despite being under duress for most of the game. 5 sacks from a very good Washington pass rush. And DeShaun Watson in the second half, again, great 145 in the second half, I think it was, 144. 3 touchdowns, no picks in the game. After nothing going offensively in the first half, Nick Chubb had a couple of big runs. He carries 14 times for 104 yards. Watson had another 31 on the ground. Amari Cooper, 3 long receptions of 30-plus yards, including a 46-yard touchdown. He had 2 touchdowns total. So did Donovan Peoples-Jones, had 1. And the Browns take care of business 24-10. And 2 of their last 3 wins have been with Nick Chubb getting less than 20 carries. I was told that's impossible. But it helps when you play against Carson Wentz, who stinks. Carson Wentz 16-28, 143 yards, no touchdowns, 3 picks. Brown sacked him 3 times, including 1 by Myles Garrett. 14.5 sacks on the season for Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett made a big play there. The defense played well. It was a weird game because Washington had that one long drive in the first half. It was 21 plays, 96 yards and a touchdown on 4th down on a Carson Wentz 1-yard dive into the end zone. It was like 13 minutes of the clock, which, the Browns only had like 15 plays in the first half. But because of that, there was not a lot of plays for the Browns. But in the end, the Browns defense plays great except for that one drive by Washington. Myles Garrett, by the way, trying to set his own team record for sacks. He's had double-digit sacks every year of his career except for his rookie year where he only played 11 games. He set his team record last year. He had 16 sacks in 17 games. This year he's only going to play 15 games because he missed 2 due to the game he got when he got into that car accident. He only missed 1 game, so he's going to have 16. He's going to play 16 games. Last year, 16 sacks in 17 games. Actually, the best for his career per game was in 2019, where he had 10 sacks in 10 games. This year, he's got 14.5 in 15 games, so he'll need 2 sacks next week against the Steelers to set the team record that he set last year with 16. If he gets 2, he'll have 16.5, and he will set the team record once again. So Grant Delpit did a nice job, made a couple of big tackles, had 2 interceptions. The second one was, Carson Wentz had to just kind of heave it up there. But Denzel Ward made a nice play early before leaving with an injury. He made a really nice interception on a throw on the first drive of the game by Washington on a pass to Terry McLaurin from Carson Wentz. And listen, the defense has played a lot better. A lot of guys have played much better second half of the year, led by Denzel Ward. In fairness, they've played some terrible offenses lately, 5 of their last 6 games against really poor offensive teams. But at least it's improvement after the way the defense played. I don't think it should save Joe Woods' job. I hope it doesn't save Joe Woods' job. I don't think he's the right man for the job. Browns need to do a lot of things to make over this team in the offseason, but at least for now, a nice victory, a very impressive second half for the Browns, and it was their best half of football. They outscored the Commanders 21-3 in the second half. I thought it was some nice adjustments offensively by Kevin Stefanski. They did a lot more RPO in the second half. I think next year that's going to be a much bigger staple of this offense, both throwing and running. Running the RPO, which gives you the option. There was one play where Watson did a great job. He put it in Nick Chubb's or in Kareem Hunt's belly. And Chase Young attacked Kareem Hunt, and then Watson at the last second pulled it out and ran with it for a first down. It was a good play. I'm sure people got worked up when they took points off the board. Oh, my God. The field goal truthers were losing their mind when the Browns took points off the board and went for it on 4th down and didn't get it. Obviously, it was a no-brainer to do that, especially in a game that they have nothing to lose because the season's over and they can't make the playoffs. It'd be embarrassing if they kept the points on. You go for a touchdown. It's an opportunity for DeShaun Watson. They did try to quarterback draw. It didn't work. He got stopped. What are you going to do? Also, later in the game, they went for it on 4th and inches, and they brought in Jacoby Brissett. I'm sure that made people angry, too. That one did work. Brissett did get the first down on the quarterback keeper. We know he's really good at that. Maybe people didn't get angry because they made it and because he didn't throw the ball. But ultimately, a good overall win. Washington is actually a decent team. They're okay. I mean, they're 7-8-1 in a good division, so how bad can they be? They're not a great team, and they have a terrible quarterback situation. But if you look at rosters, overall their defense is pretty good. They're really strong up front. They've got some, I know Antonio Gibson didn't play yesterday, but they've got good running back talent led by Brian Robinson. Terry McLaurin is a top, 20 wide receiver. Jahan Dotson's a good young player. We know what Curtis Samuel is. He didn't have much of a factor. Their tight end Logan Thomas is an up-and-coming solid player. So they're not great, but they're okay. They're not the Houston Texans. They're not a terrible team. They're a mediocre team, like a lot of teams in the NFL. So I think overall it's a good win. I'm not getting that overly excited because the season's lost and it didn't really matter. But I think in the end, the most promising things out of this game were one that. And this really the one is the most important thing, and that's the fact that DeShaun Watson played lights out in the second half. I mean, it was after 9 halves of football where he'd been up and down, never great, some terrible. He had not been completely on point, but the second half, he was tremendous. He really was, and I think that gives you hope, certainly going into next week against Pittsburgh, that maybe he'll give you a full 60 minutes of great play. Remember, in the first half, Watson was 3 of 8 for 23 yards. Second half, 6 of 10, 146, and 3 touchdowns. I mean, to have 146 and 3 touchdowns when you only threw 10 passes, that's pretty awesome. Listen, you're not going to have a lot of games like that. It was, as I said, a weird game, but that's the major positive. And then the second one, which should be a no-brainer, but you never know because it's not happening for every team out there. You saw, I'm sure, what the Colts did yesterday. The Browns are playing hard down the stretch. Now, again, I'm not saying that Kevin Stefanski should get credit for it. However, we'd be critical of him if the team completely cratered. And you can, that would help your argument for those who want him fired. I'm not one of those. But if you did and the team played with no heart and no life in these final couple of games when they're out of it, that would have been some ammunition if you wanted him out. But that was not the case. The Browns playing hard, playing tough to the end of the game. Didn't take their foot off the gas, and just a really good performance overall. A really good second half. Who else gets a little credit on the defense? Did I forget anybody? Chase Winovich had his first sack of the season. Oh, Myles Garrett had 1.5 sacks. That's a bad job out of me. I thought he had 1. I don't know. I didn't realize that he had 1.5. So he's at 15. Sorry, I said he had 14.5. He's 15. So he's only 1 behind his team record last year of 16. So he only needs 1.5 sacks next week to set the record. So good. Sorry, I didn't clarify that. We'll keep an eye on Jack Conklin, who just signed his extension. Now he's hurt again. We'll keep an eye on Denzel Ward. He's playing really well right now. Had a pick. He got hurt in the game. Reggie Ragland I think is a guy the Browns probably want to keep around, a big linebacker. I'm not, saying he's a great player, but he's a guy who can be somebody that could play against the run at linebacker, where the Browns have been extremely weak and extremely vulnerable. Overall, the Browns, outside of that one long drive, the Browns overall did a good job against the run. I mean, the Washington ran for 136 yards, but that was on 37 carries. So 3.7 per carry. Brian Robinson, who's their lead back, was 24 for 87. I mean, that's 3.6 a carry. Their top 2 backs, Robinson and Williams, 33 carries for 117 yards. That's like 3.5 yards per carry. So overall, the Browns did well. They did a good job, I thought, in the running game. Not much open, and their passing game is not great because of the quarterback situation. But why Washington started Carson Wentz, I don't know. I don't know that he's any worse than Taylor Heineke. They both stink. Obviously, Washington's been looking for a quarterback like the Browns for a while. The Browns have their quarterback. I know, listen, can't do victory laps just yet because Watson played a great second half. The haters and the, whatever. And if people hate Watson off the field, they have every right to. They're going to, you can't argue that one to me, and I'm not trying to. But the people, I've seen some national writers. I saw some comments yesterday. Jason Lockenfora, who I like. DeShaun, at the end of the first half, DeShaun Watson's not it. He stinks. I mean, come on now. Come on. I get you don't like the guy, but you can't let that bias your opinion as a player. And you can't make sweeping judgments about a player based on 4.5 games when the guy has a track record in the league of being a really good player. Now, he may never be that player again. It's entirely possible that just won't happen, that we'll never see that because it's the Browns or because he missed 2 years, or because he's mentally scarred, or he's whatever he is. I don't know. But to say that based on 4.5 games is flat out stupid. And you're letting your personal beliefs get in the way. People say maybe I do that with Baker Mayfield. I think despite my fact that I admit that I don't like him, I think I've been fair when he's played well. I've given him credit. So I don't. We'll see. But anyway, it was a good win, and let me tell you that gambling, of course, now legal in Ohio. In 2023, betonline.net, your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from pro football to college bowl season to basketball and World Cup. We've got it all at betonline.net. If you love sports podcasts, you can find those at BetOnline as well. They're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right. Let's get back to it. 1 game left against the Steelers, and then we turn the page to 2023. I think Kevin Stefanski's going to be back. I know some people don't like that. I know some people are done with him. But he will be on the hot seat starting next year. The Browns are going to have to get off to a good start. The Browns do have a lot of work to do this offseason. I don't think there's any doubt about it. The front office has to be creative because they're going to have to deal with the cap for basically the first time in franchise history. The Browns have signed a lot of big extensions. They have a lot of good players, but they've got to find a way. They need more. They're not good enough. The Browns have talent, but they're not as good as the top teams in the AFC. even with a full season for DeShaun Watson, they've got work to do to be able to match up with Kansas City and Cincinnati and Buffalo. Those teams are the class of the AFC. I think as is with a full year of Watson, the Browns are probably can potentially be as good as any of the others. But if they want to get up into that top caliber of teams next year, they have the quarterback to do it. But they've got to improve some areas on the rest of the team to catch up with Cincinnati, Kansas City, and Buffalo. I don't think there's any doubt about it. And it starts in two areas. One at wide receiver. I have defended the Browns' wide receiving core. I said they were better than people were killing them, saying they were terrible. They are not terrible. But it's not good enough to compete with the top teams. They need, you need an elite guy. And the Browns don't have an elite skill position, a player in terms of wide receiver / tight end. The Bengals have it with Jamar Chase. The Bills have it with Stephon Diggs. And the Chiefs have it with Travis Kelce. The Browns have the other pieces, but they don't have that elite pass catcher. Njoku's all right. Donovan Peoples-Jones is all right. Amari Cooper's good, but he's not Stephon Diggs, Jamar Chase, and Travis Kelce. Now, it's not easy to get a guy at that level. I don't know if the Browns could possibly do it. I don't even know if there's a guy to get. They don't have a first-round pick. There's the best wide receiver in free agency as of now is going to be Juju Smith-Schuster. He's not the answer. You're not likely to get that guy in the second round of the draft. It's possible, but you never know. Unlikely, even if it happens, that he'd be that good as a rookie, being drafted in the second round. So most likely it's through trade. Could Devontae? I think it might have been Bush yesterday who said on our post-game show that the Browns maybe go after Devontae Adams because he wanted to play with Derek Carr. Maybe Mikey McNugget said it. I don't remember. That may be something they could do aggressively. I'm not sure, but they can't stand pat at that position. They absolutely cannot. They got to try to get better, and if they can't get that elite guy, well, then they've got to get two good players. If you can't get the one elite pass catcher like those other three teams have, then you got to get two good guys. Go sign Juju Smith and get somebody else. Something like that. But ideally, you get that elite guy, whether it's a trade for Devontae Adams, whether it's, let's see, I haven't really fully started getting into offseason mode and thinking about who could be available. Would Washington consider trading Terry McLaurin? I don't know. Probably not. Devontae Adams. I'm looking at teams that are bad that have elite pass catchers. Maybe DK Metcalf. They're not bad, but I don't know. I mean, those would be the guys I'm looking at. Would probably be, those would be the guys you're targeting. Devontae Adams, Terry McLaurin, DK Metcalf. I don't know if any of those guys are going to be available. I do think Juju could help him, but he's not. They're looking for that speed receiver. He's obviously not that type of guy. So, we'll see who ends up being available. But the Browns do need one more boost there. The other area, of course, is on the defensive front. I mean, they're just not good enough. Myles Garrett needs help. He's been quite productive. He could be even more productive if he had more help around him. He gets double-teamed more than any player in the NFL. It's been the case for years because he has no help. The Browns' defensive tackles, it's been a major problem. It's hit its lowest point this year, but it's been defensive tackle has been a major problem spot for the Browns for years, and it's just gotten worse. So that's something they need to address, and they need to address it big time. Yesterday we talked about, yesterday or earlier this week, I talked about what's his name on Washington. I can't think of his name now. I was stalling to try to remember his name. The defensive tackle who I mentioned last week, Deron Payne. Deron Payne was a first-round pick of Washington in 2018. He's a free agent at the end of the year. I'm assuming they'll franchise him, but if he doesn't get franchised for whatever reason or they don't re-sign him, the Browns should be in big time. This guy is an elite nose tackle, defensive tackle. He's been great. Double-digit sacks as a DT. I mean, that's huge. He plays on a real good line. He'd be a difference maker. He'd make Myles Garrett better. Myles Garrett make him better. That's an area that you'd love to see the Browns go. And I don't want to hear excuses of salary cap. There's always ways around the cap. There's always things you can do. The teams are always restructuring deals, kicking the can down the road. That's fine. Let's do it. Keep it going. Because that's an area where the Browns must improve. And just in general, their front seven's not very good. Now, outside of Myles Garrett, Clowney's a free agent. They've got nothing at defensive tackle. JOK had a bad season. Anthony Walker coming off a big injury. Don't know if he'll be back. That's it. What do we have? So fixing the front seven, but in particular defensive tackle, is a major priority right after wide receiver. But at least you're not going into this offseason for the first time in a very long time looking for a quarterback. That answer has been settled. The Browns are locked into Watson, whether you like it or not. I think he's going to play great next year. I think he'll be a top 10 quarterback next year. I'm not ready to go top 5 yet because I still think, there's guys who have passed him in the league at the moment. But I think he could potentially be in the top 5. I don't think that's out of the reality of out of the possibility of happening, of reality. And I definitely think he'll be a top 10. I'm highly confident in that. And let's hope I'm right about that. So there you go. All right, Monday Night Football tonight. Bengals-Bills. This is a great game. Two of the best teams in the NFL. The game's in Cincinnati. Buffalo, I think, was originally a 3-point favorite or maybe 2. I don't remember. Bills come into the day as a 1-point favorite in Cincinnati. The game's a toss-up. It could go either way. I try to leave my biases out of it. It's hard. Both teams have been hot. But the Bengals have played a little better overall than Buffalo has, although they played poorly in the second half against New England. They did hold on to win. The Bengals have been really good at home, 5-1 overall, 5 straight wins after losing their home opener. I'm going to have to lean towards the home team in what I expect to be a very close game. I'll go with the Bengals +1 in this one. When we come back, talk a little about the Cavs weekend plus a disastrous loss for the Buckeyes, who, along with Michigan, were both eliminated on New Year's Eve in the college football playoff. That's coming up. First, I want to talk to you about Built Bars. Built Bars are amazing. You got to try them. They're actually good for you. Covered in 100% real chocolate, low in calories, high in protein, low in sugar, all kinds of unbelievable flavors. Churro, peanut butter brownie, coconut almond. And now you don't need to wait to get around to get a box. For years, we've been talking about ordering your Built Bars at Built.com. Well, now you can get them at your local Walmart or Sam's Club as well. That's right. Head to your nearest Walmart today, walk to the pharmacy section, and grab yourself a box of Built Bars. You can pick up a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puffs. If you're close to Sam's Club, run in and grab a 13-bar box with our hit flavors like brownie batter and churro. You can thank me later. You cannot go wrong. Trust me. Go with Built Bars. You got to try this. All right. Quick camera break. And we'll be right back. I missed. Okay. We go back to Saturday night, New Year's Eve. So first, Michigan makes an interesting game late after they were down early. And ultimately, though, they lose the first game of the college football playoff to TCU, 51-45. They were down 20. Michigan had 6 points at halftime and finished with 45. They storm back. Hail Mary falls. Everybody's looking for a penalty. Not going to happen. So TCU, who everybody said couldn't win, won. Lee Corso and a lot of others said Ohio State had no chance, and for a while it looked like they were going to shut them up. But then what happened? Marvin Harrison Jr., arguably the best wide receiver in college football, who was having a great game, gets hurt, and from there the Buckeyes were up 35-24 at the time in the third quarter. He gets knocked out of the game. Buckeyes would only score 2 field goals the rest of the way. Georgia puts up 18 in the fourth quarter. The Buckeyes miss a 50-yard field goal as time expires. And let's face it, they choked. Ryan Day again loses a big game. Now, Ohio State played great offensively. But it's a four-quarter game, and you can't get outscored by 15 in the fourth quarter, and you lose 42-41. C.J. Stroud was tremendous. Kudos to him. 23 of 34, 348, and 4 touchdowns. But the Georgia in that last drive went through the Buckeyes like a knife through hot butter. And the Buckeyes had that shot, couldn't make the field goal. What a joke that Marvin Harrison has to play another year of college football. It's such a joke. Buckeyes had no running game. C.J. Stroud carried it 12 times. The rest of the team had 20 carries for 85 yards. So, not much going on the ground. They were committed to the air, and, they had their chance. They could have just made one freaking stop in the fourth quarter. And it's just a heartbreaker. So two Big Ten schools make the college football playoff. For the first time ever, I think, both semifinal games were great games. I mean, they were exciting. They came down to the end. But in the end, both Big Ten schools have been eliminated, and it will be number 1 Georgia and number 3 TCU for the national title. Georgia is a big favorite in this game, not surprisingly. I guess nobody thought TCU was going to win. They pull the upset. They score a ton of points, but still. And what is the spread on this game? It is 13.5. Georgia, a 13.5 point favorite to win. So there you go. That'll be the end of the bowl season, except for the games going on today. And I don't care about any of those games. I know some people do. With the Rose Bowl going on at 5 o'clock today, but I have zero interest in watching Penn State and Utah playing the Rose Bowl. But Ohio State had their chance. The offense played great. The defense terrible. In the end, they lose another big game. Can't happen. I don't think Ryan Day is going to get fired, and it seems crazy because they had the game, but they've come up small in the end. I mean, they played a great game. It wasn't like the Michigan game where they were out of it in the second half, but not good enough. You can't. There's no moral victories, especially when you're a program like Ohio State. 0. You win or you lose. That's the only thing that matters. They lost. That's it. All right, thanks for joining me on this Monday. A lot of good things coming up this week. We'll talk Hall of Fame ballot this week in Major League Baseball. We'll get you ready for the Browns' final regular season game against the Steelers this week. Didn't have time to talk about the Cavs today, so we'll talk about the Cavs later in the week and some other things I'm working on as well. Make sure you subscribe to the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. Our goal was to get 19,000 subscribers by the end of the year. We hit 19,000 just as the Buckeye game started on New Year's Eve. We made it with 4 hours to spare. So keep it going. Now we want to hit 20,000 by the end of January. So help us get to that goal of 20,000 subscribers. Consider becoming a member of the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. We'll be doing a show today on Monday from home. Mikey McNuggets and I, and we'll be back in studio as normal tomorrow for a Tuesday show. Jay will be back on with us. So whenever we're in studio for a show, or 99% of the time we're in studio for a show, including tomorrow, we have bonus content if you're a Coach's Tier member for just $4.99 a month. That's less than $60 a year. So consider doing that. You'll, by the way, if you become a subscriber to the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show and click on the alert bell, you'll get an alert every time I put out a podcast, the show puts out a podcast, or we do a 2-minute warning post-game show like we did yesterday, and we'll do this coming Sunday for the final game of the year. Also, if there's breaking news, we do a show or a short or something like that. Check out my website, AdamTheBull.com. Check me out on Cameo at Adam the Bull, on Twitter, Adam the Bull, and check out the Locked On Browns podcast with G. Bush and Jeff Lloyd. Please subscribe to that as well. Talk to you tomorrow, Tuesday. Where else but right here in the bullpen with Adam the Bull. See ya.